All right. Hello, everyone. All right. We're going to be going live here. I may need some help to get it onto Instagram. I know Gabriel had a way to do that. But let me just add some folks in and do some tagging and just see if we can get this thing started. Really excited about this part 3 of the program called Leadership in Crisis. I mean, we're seeing so many examples of, I'm sure, how people show up as leaders, regardless of the level they are in a particular organization. How many of you are seeing the character and the capability show up in people that maybe you didn't expect? Whether it's your neighbor, whether it's a child, particularly in your family, that is now maybe taking on more responsibility and showing some capabilities that you hadn't seen before. Raise your hand if anybody is seeing any of that. Are you seeing any surprises of people who you expected to be, voice on top of the noise, and they're actually turning out to be, over in the assimilation corner, trying to hide and hope no one asks them to do anything? Let me know. Let me know what you're seeing. Is this particularly a topic that is relevant to you right now? Because when you talk about character, I mean, that's at the core of who we are, isn't it? Oftentimes we are making judgments about people from the outside, and that's easy to do when things are comfortable and there's no pressure. I love the expression when push comes shoving, that's when you really, really learn what the person's made of. Raise your hand if you can connect with that. Send me some feedback if you actually have seen that people who hold the title of leader necessarily sometimes are absent when it comes to actually performing and leading people in a particular direction, because the leader knows the way and leads the way. I'm often reminded of there's 22 irrefutable laws of leadership. And one of them is the law of the lid, which is probably the most important because it looks at our effectiveness and our capability as a leader. Oftentimes on one axis, we are, maybe we understand something from a technical perspective, and that gives us a high score. But our ability to influence people, our ability to connect from an emotional, technical, credible, place of authenticity, all of these pieces are lacking. So as a result, we end up having a very low lid, and our lid is more or less our capacity as a leader. If our lid is low, then our capability and performance of our organization, of our team, of our family, whatever the body may be, reduces over time. So it's very, very important for us to understand what type of character needs to show up in crisis, and how do you begin to master those capabilities and lead others to be able to bring out the best leadership qualities in them. So that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit today. I'm glad to see we have I thought we had some people on here. Maybe there's some competition. Maybe folks are, hi there, Annie. How are you? Nice to see you on board. I'm seeing the numbers, so I'm excited about that. But one of these things, if we're not able to catch it on live, then maybe you'll catch it on replay. But either way, we're hoping that it will bless you. Just to remind you that this program is a 4-parter. And it's really about Patrenia Speaks, which is a platform that's really committed to growing people who grow people. I figured out in this chapter of my life that I may not be the person that'll sit on top of an organization with thousands of people, but I certainly want to be able to grow people who will have that capability and that potential and that trajectory. So very much, we have assembled a team. We've been working, and like so many of us, we have plans for 2020, and what is important is, some of what we'll talk about today is around adaptability and how you can, the best plans of mice and men, right? You need to be able to adjust. What we're going to be hitting on in this section, we're going to be answering questions like, how do you keep perspective? How important is the perspective that you keep in a crisis? what exactly is adaptability and how does it relate to how we move and how we grow? How is conformity during times of crisis dangerous? How is it a dangerous idea for leadership? And where can leaders find some of the strength they need to be able to live out the virtuous characteristics that are needed in order to lead a crisis positively? Hello, Chi-Chi, welcome. Hello, Chiron, Emmy Kings, Gabriel. So glad to see you all have been able to join us. I hope you'll be able to get a fruitful session today on our Mastermind journey. As when you start talking about character and you're talking about what shows up in the crisis, it's just so powerful because people don't lead. People don't follow an idea, do they? They follow the leader. They look at you as a person and what you emanate and what type of aroma and what character and what essence you bring. It really taps into very fundamental laws of success and laws of the universe because people feel your vibration. People feel your genuineness. People are able to connect with you in ways that go beyond your talk because they're looking at your actions and they're looking at your impact and they're looking at your intent. All of those measures really kick in when it comes to character and how character plays a very, very key role in how well crisis leadership, how we move through crisis. So, all of us have this crisis on our mind right now of the COVID-19. One of the key things that we've been talking about is crisis is not that unusual. Many of us have had crises, and you will continue to have crises in life. Solomon told us what this too shall pass. Whether you're going through a peak in your life or you're going through a valley or somewhere in between, this too will pass. So it's very important to understand that situation is situation. That's the current circumstance. Just, our law of our rhythm, our law of vibration tells us that things will change over time, so nothing is static. So we'll be talking about that adaptability then that is also required in a leader in order for him to be successful in leading people through crisis and not leaving blood on the floor, as we say. Welcome, Jamila. So happy to see you. Thank you for joining. So in our first session, we talked about defining the crisis. It is very, very important for the leader to be able to define reality. You have so many leaders that are, defining what they like to see and not what they actually see. Have you ever been in an environment where people don't really have a clue, but they're maybe talking and they're not connecting because they don't really understand what reality is? Send me a heart or a hand raise if you can relate to that. So that one of the key things in stability and grounding that followers need is for the leader to define, be very clear about the crisis. And what we talked about in that session, just to highlight it quickly, was being able to define what you can control, what you can't control, and being very, very focused on the mission. We talked about having a singular mission, but multiple perspectives. Welcome, Vivian. Welcome, Lukeman. How you doing? Long time to both of you. So it's important as a leader to define the focus and be very deliberate and intentional. Help people to notice that and the second section is because distractions come. When you be very clear and deliberate on the focus, when distractions come, people know that that may create anxiety for me if I try to put energy on what I cannot control and put energy on those things that do not take us forward toward our mission. So you begin to lead by example in terms of managing out distractions. Remember, traction is the opposite of distraction, right? Traction means that you have momentum and you're moving forward and you're moving towards something. Distraction means that it's moving you off your track. I've seen it in my couple weeks here in America. My son-in-law is very, very focused. Distraction, he would be my model for focus. So I want to give Chiron kudos in that. Very, very focused on his mission, very deliberate, very intentional. Have you seen people who aren't really going anywhere, so anywhere they end up is okay? That's very much the opposite of an undistracted leader. So you want to be able to battle distractions during the crisis. Welcome, Joshua. Nice to see you on board. The third section, which we're doing today, is character in crisis. I just was trying to get a couple more people on the call. But why are we doing this? We're doing this as a part of a mastermind under Patrenia Speaks. And it's basically, it's a supporting package with assignments that you get. And they're part of the mastermind. So we've been getting questions each session. I did a video on some of the questions just to add from the last video. But I think Jibs can put forward the link that you would need to use and the email if you want to receive the participant guide for the mastermind, so that you would have the questions and be able to guide it and go deeper into yourself. You can use that email. If you email hello@patreniaspeaks.com, then you'll be able to and request the Leading in Crisis participant guide. You will be able to receive that. Also, we're going to be posting some resources and materials that will further your learning in this process on Dream Builders, which is a Facebook platform. It's a private group, and if you send that email, you'll be able to get access to that Dream Builders group. And again, hello@patreniaspeaks.com. Hopefully someone can type that in for us. Maybe I'll just try to type that in. Yes, Patrenia, hello@Patrenia Speaks. So for those on North America, this is a lunchtime break. So look at it that way. And those on the other side of the ocean, this is the rush hour that you're not having to have because you are on lockdown. So patreniaspeaks.com. Let me just type that in for you. And if you email there, you should be able to, there you go, get the participants guide and give you access to the Dream Builders. But Patrenia Speaks is again a coaching, speaking, training platform, and we're here to listen to you. So often people have needs or challenges or questions and nobody hears them. So we're here to listen to you, to support you, to encourage you, inspire and motivate you really into action, and then to help you and guide you toward your goals. That's really our mission. And we felt as if during this time of crisis, we wanted to be a voice on top of the noise and not be a part of the people contributing to the confusion. We wanted to be a source of clarity. So with that in mind, we've put some things together and some ideas, and we've been getting very positive response, and we're excited about the opportunity to equip you with tools, resources, and the mindset to lead in crisis. So let's get at it today. I've given you a sense of what we will be talking about. Some questions will be answered. Keep learning, and how do you keep learning, keep that learning posture during a crisis? How do you keep the positive perspective? What is adaptability, and why is that important? What are signs that a shift is needed when you're going through the whole crisis process and you're a leader? Why is conformity during this time really an enemy of progress? And what can a leader find? Where can you find strength? We'll be talking about some of the character that's required, and how do you begin to build and get stronger so that all these characteristics and these positive virtues exist in all of us, but how do we end up bringing it out? So let me just start. First off, have you ever heard people say that adversity reveals? Or how about it this way, that a crisis, what is the word I'm looking for? Have you ever heard that a crisis really forges your character, and that a crisis, builds your character and creates your character? Well, to some extent, I think that is true in terms of you learning from your experiences and being able to draw from past crisis, and then that begins to help shape and mold, who you are, your mindset, your beliefs, your confidence, what drives you, what are your guardrails in life, what are those those boundaries for how you will perform and relate to people, from an ethics perspective, from an authenticity perspective. But I would challenge you that crisis reveals your character, not creates your character. It reveals your character, because your character is really a result of the choices that you've made. And those choices have helped to shape you. If you have made ethical choices, then you begin to show up as an ethical person, because we talked about aroma, we talked about energy, but you'll show up in that way when the push comes to shove. That's what will come out of you is the ethics and honesty and straightforwardness. But what you find is those choices that shape your character. When crisis comes, you basically reading the result of all those choices, because your character is a result of choices that you've made. Now, when we see this whole point about crisis reveals what's inside us, really, when you squish an orange, you get orange juice. When you squish a lemon, you get lemon juice. If it quacks like a duck, it likely is a duck. So you cannot moan and expect to lead at the same time. People hearing the moaning, they will step away from you, whether you're the mother in the family, you're a leader in your community, a leader in your organization. So that moaning aspect, though we may have that because we're all human, you need to manage that. You can't be projecting this moaning and trying to lead at the same time. There's a reading that I haven't been able to pull up, but I'll share on the Dream Builders platform. But it's from John Hope Bryant, and what he is an author. I've got a thing here about him real quick. John Hope Bryant, he wrote a book called Love Leadership. And Love Leadership, John Hope Bryant actually is an African American. I actually read about him some years ago, some work he did in South Africa. But John Hope Bryant, I'll just read it real quick. Childhood poverty, 6 months homelessness, fueled his desire to help people in low-income communities. After the Rodney King riots, how many of you remember the Rodney King riots? That really rocked and shaped our world and maybe provided a huge crisis in us seeing who we were as a people. But the Rodney King riots divided Los Angeles and the nation. Bryant started something called Operation Hope. Imagine that, Operation Hope. That's what we as leaders need to project, right? A hope and a belief that things can get better. He discusses how his hard upbringing and subsequent efforts to start and run a nonprofit organization taught him the 5 main laws of, get this, leading without fear. Leading without fear. That fear is something funny, isn't it? Because it's an emotion. It's an emotion that shows up. And if we are led by emotions, it's very difficult for us to stay disciplined, because those emotions will always change. Those emotions, in order to have the discipline, we need to be led by our thoughts and our goals and our discipline. That takes us away. I always say, act your way into feeling. Don't wait on the feeling to come. If you want to exercise every day, typically most of us, and there are some exceptions, but how many of us actually feel like exercising every day? Most of us are linked to the outcome or the results that we want from exercising every day. So I find it easier just to roll out of my bed, not to think about it, and go do the exercise. And after I'm acting my way, then I begin to feel my way. So act yourself into feeling, not depending on the feeling. So fear is an emotion that, if you manage it from the perspective of my thoughts and my goals, that helps you to minimize some of the fear, as well as adding the paradigm I've talked to you about what can I control and what I cannot control. But anyway, Brian includes in this book interviews with both famous and unknown love-based leader. So his whole thing is about love and leadership. Includes Bill Clinton and a bunch of other people. But his own story is a very compelling example of love-based leadership. And what he brings out, so that love and that compassion is a huge part of your character. We talked about people first, right? We talked about that in past sessions. If you don't have a love for the people that you are leading and the cause for which you are moving toward, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to show up in a way that has the compassion and the care. He also talks about, and I'm going to summarize this, like I said, I will post it, that people who find the strength of their leadership or their strength of themselves outside of themselves will have a very hard time leading. And what do we mean by that? Things outside of ourselves might be our car, right? Or how fancy our car is, how big our salary is, what our title is, what our position is in a particular organization, a job, or whatever. Transformation, though, is what's required to evolve and become the best leader, right? And that transformation is all about things inside of you. None of that is on the things outside. And I think this particular time in history has shown us what we can do without, right? So many of the things that we were used to. I love, my coach made a joke the other day. She was saying, for all of you who were competing on handbags, your designer handbags, your designer shoes, your new outfit, nobody can see that now. It's all exterior. And I love it's a Yoruba kind of expression that I saw when I went to Ile-Ife. And it talks about the outer man and the inner man. That oftentimes we're at odds because if we are so focused on the image we're projecting, and that image we're projecting is so different from what's inside, there's always going to be a conflict. People are not going to be able to relate. Yeah, can you relate with that? Where people are trying to show up. But when stress comes, this outer man has a hard time because it just gets weak and it begins to fall off. And people experience what is truly inside. So it's no more, it's like cosmetics, right? When you wake up in the morning, you don't have your makeup on yet. You're seeing the genuine person. Chris Rock has a joke where he says, when you meet women, you're not meeting the real woman. You're meeting her representative. Her false lashes, her makeup, her hair, her whatever. The real person, all jokes aside, the real person resides inside. And that's where character shows up. So it's about what's on the inside, not what's on the outside. The ability to adapt and shift based on circumstances. You're not made in a crisis, you're revealed in the crisis. So when I look at, if you follow me, you've heard me say a lot of times that if you're not flexible, you'll break. So when we talk about adaptability and we talk about, character, so our character is some of that immutable things. That authenticity, it's about persistence. There's a whole battery of it's called classifications. It's 6 classes of virtues that are grouped into character strengths. Wisdom and knowledge is one of those. Courage, humanity, transcendence, justice, and moderation. And there's 24 character strengths underneath. I recently did this particular assessment, and it gave me great insights into happiness. You know how people choose jobs that don't connect with the certain character strengths, and they wonder why they're like operating outside of their strength. They're operating outside of their character dominance. And that's very powerful for you as a leader to really plug in and understand what some of your character strengths are and be able to bring them out. So in this classification, it's just a powerful way for you to begin to see and say, how am I showing up? What is my true and authentic self? If you can't be authentic, it's going to be very difficult for you to lead with any type of credibility. Because remember, people are not following the cause. They follow the person. And they're looking for the person to show up, that consistency, that consistent persistence. They're looking for you to, to be a model of what they would like to be. You know, sometimes we lead, and I guess the joke is, if you're walking and no one's behind you, you're not leading, you're just taking a walk. So are you showing up with characteristics of honesty, with gratitude, with empathy, so that people will feel some emotional attachment to you, some belief around your honesty, and that they can trust being themselves with you? Remember, we talked about it in these times in terms of working virtually, for example. How are you going to build those relationships? How do you connect? It's your character that begins to show up when all the roughness is around. One of the things a couple of things I want to bring out is that it's good news, because in that adversity, oftentimes leaders can learn to shift for the better, even in the midst of a crisis. You know, good coaches start a game with a game plan, but great coaches know how at halftime to make a modification and adapt. And one of the things that we have to do as leaders is at the first hint of change, we need to begin to modify. And again, without compromising our character and our principles, but begin to say the objective that we're trying to reach, our goal is so noble that it's worthy for us to find multiple ways to get to that same goal. So you start with a plan on how you expect things to be. And like we talked about before, defining reality is very, very key. So in this reality, how do I need to make an adjustment? I give an example. We look at Zoom, right? Keeping a learning posture during a crisis is one way to know how to be adaptable. What's happening with Zoom now? Everybody in the world is sitting on that platform. A lot of people knew what the problems were, but there was no squeezing of the orange. Nobody saw the juice and saw the problem. But I tell you what, I love it that Yuan, the CEO of Zoom, has come on very proactively and said, I apologize. I apologize for the issues that we've been having. I apologize for inconvenience. It just feels very, very genuine, like he does care. And guess what? He's putting action behind that talk and putting controls in place and putting changes in place. And guess what else he's doing? He's communicating judiciously, letting us know how those changes apply to us, and they're giving us a chance to learn how to use it. That's an example of having a learning posture during crisis so that you can be adaptable, modify your play as the quarters go, and then be able to deliver in a way that's valuable and moving people toward an objective that they see as worthy. And that objective for us is our ability to communicate, our ability to work remotely and still have a voice in all of this noise. So I really like that real live example that we're seeing. John Hope Bryant would be an excellent one as well with the whole Operation Hope. I've seen him in South Africa making these types of changes. We've seen him in Los Angeles. You should get his book and just read about love leadership. Building your compassion as a leader is very, very important. So you heard me talk about conformity. Conformity is the enemy of progress. And a lot of times people see conformity, I would define conformity as trying to fit in. Sometimes people conform because they don't want to be seen, right? Just want to blend into the background, and if I don't make, too quick of movements, they won't notice me. That's not a position for a leader. Trying to just fit into what everybody else is saying and not really positioning and processing the truths for yourself through your own filter. What value can you add if you just copy paste what everybody else is doing? What value can you add if you're not bringing your own thinking to the process? So in your conformity, trying to be like everybody else, I would discourage you, because that's not leading. Leading is being able to process things for yourself and coming up with a posture for adaptability. What needs to be changed? What needs to be reprocessed? So what is it that we need to be doing differently? Thank you very much, Molly. What is it that we need to be doing different? Thank you, Nikki. How? So I'm going to maybe go a little deeper here, because in order to be that adaptable leader, one, it takes courage. It takes courage maybe process things in a different way. There are 6 intellectual faculties. The first one is your ability to reason. Don't abandon your ability to reason just when everybody needs what's uniquely inside of you. Don't leave it. Your ability to reason. Les Jackson talks about most people fail in life not because they don't aim high enough. What is the word? Because they don't work hard enough. It's because they aim too low and they hit it. So it's very, very important. It's very, very important that we use our ability to reason and don't shrink too high, too low. Sorry about the phone. I haven't been able to get everything lined up yet, but we're moving anyway. The other thing is will, having that focused concentration. What is the goal? How can I sustain focus on it? Remember we talked about squirrels and not distraction? All of those things are going to help you to be able to bring out the type of characteristics that you need to show up as a credible leader. Set the goals, like I said, within your belief zone of what is possible. So like $1 million income still might be what you set out for your Vision 2020, for your company, for your team, for your business, for your community. Maybe it's fundraising, right? All of us are showing up in different vocations in terms of leaders. But truly, if $1 million